Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the ESBN podcast. My name is Chippy. I am your host today. I am joined by Adam. Say hello, Adam.
Hello, I am the engineer for the ESBN podcast.
Awesome. Well, welcome onto the podcast today. We got a few quick things to go over. It'll be pretty brief today, but Adam and I wanted to talk a little bit about esports and in general, what you can watch or maybe what our favorites to watch today are, especially with some major events happening right now. So, first things first, of course, we got to get into that recap. Got to know how your Broncos are doing. The Overwatch 2 team has recently been doing phenomenal. We have seen them picking up game after game and getting a win against Akron University this past week. It was one of few things to name in a part of their excellence. Now, this week, currently, today is Thursday as of recording this, and they had a doubleheader this week. So tonight, they'll be facing up against Northeastern University. But on Tuesday night, the Broncos played against Northern Kentucky University, picking up a sweet 3-1 victory over them and making a comeback towards the playoffs. They're doing phenomenal so far, getting some screen time in for Jay Money as well as Squamous, showing off that prowess, letting them know that the Broncos are here and that this meta can be theirs if they're able to get a good run into the bracket. But needless to say, they have been doing great. The League of Legends team is competing off, the varsity League of Legends team, I should say, is competing in an event. Right now, they just joined a league. I'm not sure what it's called, but they faced off against Northern Texas University, I think. NTU is all I have in my head. It's green, have Hawks. Pretty sure it's North Texas University. But they played against them last night and sadly lost 0-2 fashion. But yeah, overall, a pretty good start to the end of the season for the Overwatch team, and the league teams getting some more playtime in. So shout out to those guys. They're doing great so far this season. Have some events coming up if you have not been aware. You are listening to us on WIDR FM 89.1. We are lovely here. We love the atmosphere and the hosts as well that all join us. My favorite show on WIDR FM has got to be the food one. I love
Kazoo Foods.
Kazoo Foods is awesome. I love hearing them every single week. So go take a look at their podcast as well and hear a little bit about, some foods in the area or even their favorite tastes that are local or national. But to get into some of the events here at Western Michigan University for esports, we have our Bronco Beatdown. That is tomorrow as of recording this, so it'll be already done for those who are listening. But it is a fighting game tournament where we host 5 titles for players all across the state or nation to come compete in, or students alike. You're able to come on by and play in games like Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Guilty Gear Strive, and the last one is Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising. So, tons of awesome games. You're able to come check them out. Compete. It is a $15 venue fee and a $5 entry fee to each game. So just $20. Able to get you into one game of your choice as well as into the venue. And then for students, it's a discounted price to $8 for the venue fee and still the $5 for entry fee into the games. But you get a pretty nice discount as being a student coming onto the event. That is any student across the nation, by the way. As long as you have a valid student ID and are able to show us, we will discount that price for you. So pretty cool. Outside of that, if your kid is interested out there and you are listening, we have summer camps where your kid is able to come on by and check a little bit about esports at Western Michigan University and go through a growth mindset course in 5 days where we teach them games like Overwatch and Rocket League along this growth mindset idea to continue to push and grow in esports and themselves and learn themselves. Wait.
You got it. Take your time.
And then themselves. No, that doesn't sound right. I
learn about themselves
and learn a little bit more about the growth mindset themselves.
There you go.
Learn
That's
a little bit more about esports themselves as well. So, ad read done. I'm kidding.
Check it off the list.
Checked. Yeah. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about esports in general and try to give an idea. What is esports? To those who may not be familiar. And so esports is simply put competitive video games. Now, competitive video games, you may say, oh, I've played on a Wii before. They got like Just Dance, Wii Sports. Well, if you're gonna play Wii Sports, you could just go do real sports. I'm sorry, it's just the same thing.
I mean, yeah, but like, have you seen the speedrunning community though?
Dude, speedrunning in and of itself is an amazing thing. They also compete in those. They have their own form of speedrunning esports. So they do races and stuff like that for prize money. Really, really cool. They do that for Counter-Strike, for surfing is what it's called, where people just glide along polygons and get speed and momentum. And that's it.
Oh.
It's really, really cool. To people who love like movement tech, in video games, it looks really, really cool as well when some of the maps actually look nice. But with that out of the way, competitive video games, much like playing, football, soccer, or, anything like that, rugby, out there in the world, you're able to do the same thing, but with video games. Now, you may say, but sports also does that as well. You have sports games like Madden, NBA 2K, and stuff like that.
But it's different, though.
It's different, where you're controlling every single player all at once. But you're also playing a video game in that idea, right? Where, it's not the real experience. You're not going out and getting that physical training all the time. You're using your brain and some of those mechanical skills that the players are developing, and also strategies. And I'll be honest with you, it helps to know how to play sports games to be in esports. Same thing with racing games. You think you could just pick up a competitive esport in racing and just go on a track and win? No, it doesn't work like that. You see, you have to know the tracks. You have to, know the timings, the speed, the routes. All of those are real, taken straight from the tracks and put into the game. So that in and of itself is some of the ways that esports is related to the real world today. And then you may, hear today, and even some of our Broncos today are playing titles like Overwatch 2, League of Legends, Rocket League, and Valorant, where these games are all different, is the best way to put it.
They have different mechanics for each ones, and some of them are just different. They play differently altogether.
Yeah.
Like, the skill set of a League of Legends player will not usually cross over for Overwatch.
No, not at all. And even, to provide you that real world example, to give you that kind of context, strategy games sometimes may translate to battleground theory. People talk a little bit about, war, and you can go on and on about that. And not to state that as a political thing, but when, you look at war strategy and anything strategy related in that regard, if someone has battlefield experience, and they look at a strategy game that is war themed and involves some of those war-based tactics, those translate straight to the game. And, and something to mention in that regard is like there are strategy games out there like Civilization and StarCraft, which use tactics made from war and as well as, military experience to have that kind of idea. People do study these things. It is real. It is very, very real.
Not to mention just like there's a lot of different games that are based off of like military themes or like medieval themes and whatnot. Each one having their own different like their own different combat styles and like mediums for strategy, I guess. But the general strategy that you implement can overlap. Like, say, if you want to use guerrilla warfare, you can probably do that.
You could probably do that. You could most likely do that in any regard. But yeah, so to even further push that point, that is the idea of what we're looking at esports, right? It's just that competitive side where people can let out that little bit of competition they may not usually have. So I've mentioned it many times on the podcast. If you listened, when I joined the esports program in 2020 here at Western, I competed in Rainbow Six Siege, and I played as the IGL, or the in-game leader and captain for the team when I joined originally. And so that role in a tactical shooter is what they're called, a tactical first-person shooter, is it involves strategy, using your ability, and a time-based mode where you have to play an objective. And sounds pretty straightforward, but in retrospect, a lot of those things involve communication. Having the communication skills, the leadership skills, and all those things to be able to put into a tactical shooter. And now, today, there are many, many popular ones. Rainbow Six Siege is still going. But today, we're currently running right now, and you can probably still watch. Or no, it'll be done by the end of this weekend. But the PGL Major in Copenhagen for Counter-Strike 2 is happening live right now. Live right now. But it's happening live right now where that's a tactical shooter. And those people are insane. The game, Counter-Strike, has been out for over...
Yeah, like CSGO, you mean?
Yeah,
oh, yeah, that's been out forever.
You date back to like Counter-Strike Source, where these games have been out since like 2001. You know, or not even. A little later than that. It was like 2005.
There's Counter-Strike, there's Halo games, there's Call of Duty, there's TF2.
TF2, yeah, Team Fortress 2 Esports is still kicking. That is very, very real and still alive.
Overwatch. Did we say Rainbow Six already?
I did say that, yeah.
Valorant. There's Paladins, but not really.
Paladins isn't as popular anymore. That one did die.
Yeah.
That one did die.
And then Splatoon.
Splatoon is a very popular community-based one. I'm not sure if Splatoon themselves have hosted things. I bet you they have.
Probably. They've hosted a couple,
they probably
from what
have.
I know. Yeah.
So
that's about 9. Am I missing any?
Probably millions more. All the sports games out there, right?
Yeah.
You can literally
I mean
every
tactical
sports
shooter. Tactical shooter.
If we're talking tactical wise, I mean,
I can't name every game. Oh, you're a gamer? Name every game.
Yeah, right. I can't think of any off the top of my head anymore.
What, tactical shooters?
That are, the popular ones. If we're going solely off the popular ones, I'd say you listed currently all the popular games that are esports. Even then, there are hundreds more out there. There are plenty more games that are out there that are competitive.
I mean, yeah, we didn't even say any fighting games yet.
No, we haven't even gotten to the fighting games yet. And that's a whole barrel in and of itself. We could start simple. The UFC. There's an esports for UFC, and there's a game for UFC. Or, sorry, the UFC. If you've watched it, you know,
unabbreviate that, please.
Martial arts. But the Ultimate Fighting Competition is the mixed martial arts competition you may see. Conor McGregor, right? So he's a popular name that you see in that. He's a playable character, or a real person, I should say, in UFC, or in the UFC game. And so people compete under that. But then you go a little bit more down
like the rabbit hole.
The rabbit hole. That's the word I'm looking for. More down that pipeline. You get into like 2D screen fighting games where people growing up, they played Street Fighter. And you may ask, what's Street Fighter? It's just a 2D fighting game where people hit buttons and do combos, and it does cool things. I promise you, that's it.
I mean, definitely.
You could talk. There's a lot that goes into fighting games, because when you play, like, the one specifically that we are very popular here with Western is Super Smash Bros.
Yep.
And
Smash
that one has abilities
here, I think,
where they have multiple directional inputs that do different things. And in and of itself, it's a million things. But they all have one common underlying factor that every player learns when they try to be competitive, and that's frames. That is the craziest thing that I do not understand.
Basically, when someone says you're plus... Okay, a frame advantage is basically when you are able to perform an action while your opponent is not able to perform an action. So when you say, "Oh, I'm plus 9 frames," that means that you have 9 frames to act while your opponent is unable to act.
Yeah, that, and I believe an average frame is a tenth of a second.
An average. It depends on what game. Because some games run at 100. Sorry, one out of like 1 frame. What's it? Some games run 60 frames a second. Other games run 30 frames a second. So it depends on what game you are talking about. Usually it's usually 60 frames a second.
Yeah. So if we stick at the generalization where every game is average 60 frames a second. Back when the Wii, came out and stuff like that, it used to be 30 frames a second, right?
Right.
So let's say we were playing Super Smash Bros. Brawl, I think is what it's called for the Wii. Or
yeah, that's the Wii one. Oh, so, that game died.
That game was sucked, to be honest.
It wasn't good.
It was not good.
It was. I love Subspace Emissary, but I'm sorry, that game wasn't good.
But that game has 30 frames a second. Now, if we say you have a 9-frame advantage, that's 10 frames in a second.
No, it's 30 frames a second.
Sorry.
You're
good. Back a step. That's 10 frames out of your 30 total in 1 second. That's the wording I was looking for.
Yes. you have a third of a second to do things while your opponent cannot do things.
So there you go. That's a glimpse at the reaction time, right? If we say you have a 10 frame advantage in 60 frames, that's 1/6 of a second that you have an advantage, right? And fighting game players capitalize on those instantly. Their reaction times are insane. And it just continues to go down that pipeline where they have to heighten their reaction times, their skills, they have to memorize all the combos and stuff like that that go into being competitive in those games.
Not just memorizing combos, but memorizing the inputs for each different move.
Yes.
Because I've seen glimpses and like pieces of different like terminologies for fighting games. Like I've learned enough where if someone's like, hey, do a 2H into a DP input, I'd be like, okay, I kind of know what that is.
I was watching a fighting game video last night, funnily enough, about some of the hardest combos to do in fighting games.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh man, are there some crazy combos out there? And
the
guy was trying to say like the combos, and it just didn't make any sense. And eventually, I was able to figure out that, you know, a down left action or down left movement into down right into right is you can just do that action as a full half circle.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, so if I just pretend I'm doing a half circle, that's all those inputs instead of going boop or going down left neutral being the stick isn't moving, right? Down left on the stick, moving into the down left position, of course, right? Going down left, neutral, down right, which I thought originally meant when you have to do all these combos, you have to be able to put the input in and go back to neutral state to do the next button input. I didn't know that you can just string the inputs together, and I learned that last night.
Okay.
And so he was talking about how some of those combos in fighting games, you can just make inputs in some older games, and as long as you do the last input in the command, you can do the ability.
Right.
And I was thinking about that, and I was like, wait, that actually makes a lot more sense now. And so players have to sometimes memorize those gimmicks, is what we'll call them, right? For certain combos, where if you have to do
the input move, like the input.
If you have to do like 10 inputs, and you can somehow make that input faster by doing them in a very easy pattern, that makes it a lot simpler for people trying to learn those combos.
It does also, it's also very standoffish for new players, I feel, though.
Yes, it's very, very hard. If you don't understand or aren't willing to learn how the combos work or to understand like the flow of combat, like I grew up playing shooters my entire life. You know, I played Call of Duty, you know, as a preteen, stuff like that, growing up. And so I never understood like button inputs. All I knew was just, you know, point, click.
Okay.
Growing up.
No, I was the full opposite. I grew up playing a lot of different platformer games, and if I did play shooter games, it was very rarely and usually on the Xbox 360. So
back to the Modern Warfare 2 days.
No, I played Halo 3 and 4.
That's what I'm just like flashback to that. Halo 3 rocks.
It does.
I always go back to play Halo 3.
But I've so when it comes to fighting games, I'm not used to having to do like quarter circle, like heavy punch, because that's just not in my known idea of what a control scheme should be.
And when you're new to fighting games and you say, and when someone's new to fighting games and you're trying to explain, you know, hey, do a quarter circle, you know, up B, and they're just like, what does quarter circle mean and what? And you're just like, oh, you just do this input and this input in a motion. You know, it's like, I don't understand that. I never understood that until now, and I've been playing fighting games, you know, for a while. So, yeah, I mean, it's just like little tidbits and stuff like that. So, we've touched on, to recap, we've touched on the fighting games in esports, touched a little bit about on shooters in esports. We talked a little bit about strategy in esports as well, and the sports games, right?
Right.
Now, there's one game that I wanted to touch on that kind of feels like an outlier. It feels like a sports game, but it feels like high action intensity and stuff like that. And
I think I know which game you're talking about.
Rocket League.
Yeah, okay, okay.
When we think about Rocket League, everyone would describe it as car soccer.
Because it's kind of accurate and like in a one sentence description, yeah.
But in and of itself, players control a car where it can boost and fly, and the goal is to hit a ball in the arena into the opposing goal.
Yeah.
There are no roles in the game. You just go in and you play. And now that is the scariest part to new players, where if all they know what to do is hit ball in net, defend net, you could play Rocket League. As long as you know how to drive a car, like play racing game with a controller.
Have you ever played Atari's Pong? You can play. You
can play Rocket League.
You know the general premise. There you go.
You can play Rocket League. But the hardest part is that, understanding the controls. And where Rocket League lies as an outlier is some of the insane mechanical skill that the game requires. And to play at the highest level, or even to get at a decent rank in the game, if you're trying to play competitively on your own time, you have to understand how to do certain mechanics in the game. For example, an aerial. Now, an aerial is a goal scored from the air strictly. And that means launching your car from the ground into the air, and the ball goes from the air into the net strictly.
Like a game of volleyball?
Like a game of volleyball is a way to describe it. But instead of hitting the ground, you have to hit it into the net from the air.
Man, I don't even know how to jump in that game.
Exactly. So if you don't even know how to jump in Rocket League, you're already starting off pretty low. You have to understand to learn the mechanics in the game. And even then, it's difficult, because to describe the controls is a lot like trying to teach someone how to fly a plane. And the players I've met too who play Rocket League, a good chunk of them are pilots, which is really funny.
They're just aerospace majors?
Yeah. Shout out to currently Gengar on the team. He's a current pilot. And Rennet, who graduated, was also a pilot. And they are currently two of some of the most mechanically gifted players I've seen. They all have hit GC. Gengar's currently an SSL player, top 500 in the world. So
what you're telling me is to play Rocket League on a competitive level, it's like rocket science.
It's like rocket science, yeah. No, it's not necessarily, but it's knowing that mechanical skill, right? Where how does my car rotate? When I jump and I pull back on the joystick, which way does it tilt? It's gonna tilt up, because that's how a yoke or a flight stick works in a plane. So those are things to keep in mind. And then there's also like specific buttons you can map where you get air rolls, where you can, I don't remember the flight terms for it, but when you rotate your plane in the air.
An aileron roll?
Any spin, pretty much.
An aileron roll.
I don't know what that means.
Basically, when you're in air, you just from the middle of the vehicle just spin.
Yeah. Yeah, you pretty much just...
Thank you, Matt Pat, for teaching me that one.
Matt Pat, no.
He's still going to be around. He'll be all right.
I'm crying. He's gone. But yeah. Rest in peace, Matt Pat. He's not gone. He's retired.
He's not dead.
he's forever gone. He's not in game theory. He's forever gone.
He'll just be in the background cooking. Give him a minute. Let him cook. Let him cook.
Videos, just cooking. It's like instead of doing, this is such a random thought. I'm sorry. Instead of doing like the game theory videos where they have like the the slideshow-esque theme where they put just random images up and voiceovers with it. It's just the background. It's a background video of Matt Pat cooking the entire time. And then it's a voiceover with images randomly in describing what's happening in like the game or movie or film theory.
Just like you see Matt, like I know you meant cooking as in like making videos and whatnot. I imagine just a
Real
camera
cooking.
of a camera
like
of him in the kitchen.
Yeah, in the kitchen. Yes. No, that's what I mean. Him actually in a kitchen. Yes. Sorry. To rephrase.
He's just in the kitchen making pasta, being like, so
like
this is the lore of Undertale.
He has the baby harness on with his kid in the middle too. So funny. Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry, we derailed this conversation real
so
bad.
Fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, the
Rocket League.
The
Back to
mechanical
Rocket
prowess of Rocket League is not to be undermined. But where do we place Rocket League in the esports realm, right? It's not a sports game because it is flying cars, but it's not a racing game because it's soccer. So is it both?
I would call it like an action sports game, if anything else. But I don't know if that's right. It's a sport,
So,
but it's way more actiony than an actual
so
sports
if we had
game.
to Google what Rocket League genre is, its first descriptor is an action game.
Okay, so I was right on the money there.
Yeah. And then it also falls under the sports video game category, car racing, vehicle
Racing?
simulation. Yeah, car racing game.
You don't race in the game, though.
You don't race in the game. Wait, that's Rocket Racing now. Sorry, no. Rocket Racing is just a Fortnite game, man. But yes, it's
Right,
just a vehicular soccer video game is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, that's about right, honestly.
Which is really, really funny to say, what genre is it in? It's an action game. What? So yeah.
It's in the same genre as like Devil May Cry and Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, it which is
Think
really
about that
funny.
for a
It's
minute.
that one. Oh man, yeah, that one.
It's Rocket League. There's
Oh,
no
boy,
other.
it's Rocket League.
That's the best descriptor you can give
Yeah.
it, or just like the one sentence one earlier of car soccer.
Yeah, that is a little goofy in it.
Side tangent. I have been seeing more games where it's just different cars doing different sports. Like I've seen car golf before. I've seen a car fighting game.
They made the Rocket League game on phone, Rocket League Sideswipe, I think is what it's called. And that's just like, in Rocket League, they
What?
also have a game mode called Hoops where you can play basketball in Rocket League.
Okay, that's kind of sick.
It
That's
actually
kinda
kind of
sick.
rocks because like you can't score under the net and the ball has to only go in from the top of the net. So it's pretty cool. It's one of my favorite modes because it actually requires you to like play the game and
No,
not like sit on the ground.
I like that. I like that.
But it's hard because if you can't get in the air, it's over. It's just over. You can do a layup pretty well in it. You could just like drive your car, scoop the ball under it, and just like pop it up, and then do a layup.
Right.
It's pretty cool. There's no other way to describe it. If you're out there imagining it, or trying to visualize it, think of yourself doing a layup, but with a car and the ball on top of the car instead. That's it.
Yeah, that's about right. Like, or when you were in like gym in like middle school or high school, and they bring out the giant volleyball, like the one that's your size, and you have to play a game with that. It's like that, but with cars. I think that's I think that's how I would phrase it.
It is a good descriptor.
I've seen a lot of different games where it's just like you take two different genres of games and just mix it into one game basically. Rocket League is one of them where
Rocket
it's a
League
car
is one of those,
racing
yeah.
and a sports
We could
game.
talk about like Only Up. It's just like that's just a platformer where the only goal is to go up.
Yep. Well, that's just a platformer though. That's a lot of platformers. Like that's Doodle Jump.
But it's like, I guess you could describe it as like a race because some people, well, okay. In the esports context, you can describe it as a race because of speedruns.
Yes. Well, that's
Sorry.
any game as well.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. But you can call every game a racing game.
True.
Oh,
True.
That is an awful thought.
You can race any game if you
can
try
race
hard
any
enough.
game if you try hard enough. That is a fact. Me racing through Baldur's Gate and going, oh man.
It's a seduction speedrun.
Yeah, it's true. You can do that, where you just do that any percent speed run, or not any percent. I just don't want to say the name of it, so I won't say the name of it.
We'll get
But
canceled if we say it. You
look
can't.
up- You can look it up yourself, and you can find out that the speed run is like not even 5 minutes. It's less than 5 minutes.
It's only 5 minutes.
It's less than that. Hold on.
That's nearly the same time as Mario Bros. 1.
Yeah, that is.
Oh my god.
Dude.
Oh my god. No way. Hold on, I'm checking the Super Mario Bros. Time
Yeah, hold
right
on.
now. Give me a minute. How? Because I know it's like less. It's 4:23, I believe.
Dude, how come it doesn't come up when I search that? What?
I check speedrun.com.
I got it. It's currently 2 minutes and 13 seconds for the seduction run.
Okay.
That's the best way to describe it. 2 minutes and 13 seconds.
Okay. Oh no, I was wrong. Sorry. I think the task might have been like 253.
Isn't it Mario? Is a Super Mario 1 speedrun like 10 minutes? Less than that, 8 minutes.
Less than that. It is
6.
okay. The first top 5 spots are all 4 minutes 54 seconds, and then it's all varying
frame
ranges
data.
of
It has
like
to be frame data,
milliseconds. Yeah. Where the Nifsky's back in the top spot at 4 minutes 54 seconds, 0.631.
Yeah, I think they said that the most they can do is 453.
I think that's
lowest
right.
that speedrun can go based on frame data.
Yep. I think so. Yeah.
So
And they're
the
really
task-
close.
If you find the task percent, it'll
Task
tell you
stands
the
for tool assisted speedrun.
Yes. The robot run, or the AI speedrun, for simpler terms. But it's just perfect. You can make it
the
a perfect
perfect
run because there's no mistakes, and you can do insane tricks that you're not able to do in real life. So
Yeah, like wrong warping, wall jumps, anything you could do perfectly.
speaking of like one of those speedruns that are down to perfect, which I think is still accurate, GoldenEye 007 GoldenEye
Ooh.
has a speedrun on one of the levels. It is frame perfect, where there is no possibility that the run can ever be broken. That is how crazy that speedrun was.
Dang. Okay.
Which is something to think about. You know, it's like people trying to go for those world record fastest runs, where it's like they have to be literally perfect the entire time to even get close to some of those perfect times.
Right.
So yeah.
There's a lot of games where it's like they got the perfect speed run down basically, or like they know most of, if not all of the tech to get the perfect speed run down.
So yeah.
Another example is Punch Out for the NES.
Punch Out is
Where
that's
there-
an amazing one.
There's a lot of different. There's a couple fights in that game where it's multiple people have the world record because it's all gotten down to the same point and the same strategy of
And
getting
what's
the fastest.
insane is that Punch Out speedrun has what's called RNG, or random number generated.
Don't get me started on
parts.
that one. Oh,
And we can go into
dude.
hours about randomly generated speedruns and how awesome they are. For example, Minecraft. One of the most
Okay.
popular games of all time
Well, okay.
has an RNG speedrun where it's called the Any Percent. Oh, but what? No. Any percent unseeded speedruns in Minecraft are varying times because it requires the speedrunner to go in, beat the Ender Dragon without knowing any of the information because of seeds. And there are also Minecraft speedruns out there that are seed-based, where someone has a specific seed, but they're able to go in and have a set time on beating that speedrun because they know the route. You know what I mean? And so those are some of the cool things with Minecraft where RNG is manipulated to win the run,
Right.
which is really, really cool.
In terms of Punch Out, though, it's more so just you have to get lucky.
Yeah, that's because like the fighters that you go against in the Punch Out have different moves they do at different times, and sometimes if it randomly rolls what attack they want to do, and it lands on that attack, you may lose time because of that in certain scenarios. You know.
There's that, and also when they go down and then get back up,
yes.
the amount of health they get back is also dependent on RNG.
Yep, depending on how they went down and when they went down, all depends and changes how much HP they get back, which is crazy to think about.
No, I think it's just full RNG on the health refill.
If you go down multiple times, your health gets lower. That is a fact. In Punch Out,
when you go down,
when they go down.
Yes, that is true. But I believe it's a 3 in 8 chance they get the bad refill where they get the most health. 4 in 8 where it is a medium one, which is all right, not the best, but not the worst. And then a 1 in 8 where they have less health than they would normally when they get back up.
Yeah.
Which that's the one that people go for because less times needed to punch people.
And they can't do anything about that because it's all dependent on
RNG. Yeah.
RNG. So some of the cool things related to that as well. There are some of the cool things that are related to the tech that comes to speedrunning and being competitive in speedrunning.
Yeah.
But yeah. So a little bit of tidbits about esports. So if you out there are maybe interested in, competing or even getting involved, the speedrunning community is awesome. They're very, very open to always having new people join. And so I would highly recommend if you want to get a little competitive in a game you love to play. One of my friends speed ran Ratatouille for a little bit. You know, a simple game. It's like a 20-minute speed run. Pretty cool.
Now, I tried to speed run the True Arena for Kirby Superstar Ultra. I know the bosses well enough, but it's RNG depending on what pattern you get with each one.
Yeah,
that's the main thing.
Yeah. So some of those cool things.
It's mainly just crack out. It's mainly just crack out. I swear to God.
So if you out there are interested in getting involved, feel free to figure it out. You know, you can even get involved in esports if you try to find the community and getting involved in that community early on in their lowest tier of scene. But the best descriptor I have for that is like tier 4 esports is like community-based local tournaments.
Yeah.
And random skill level people that are put in, where like pros are the best of the best. You know, people in the world who would get contracts and get paid to play video games, which is crazy to me. So
yeah, like have you seen Super Smash Brothers Melee?
Yeah, that stuff is crazy.
I understand what you have to do to perform the actions in the game. I don't understand how people can do it so consistently and so quickly. I don't get that.
It's insane. It is truly, truly insane. But I want to thank you, Adam, for joining me today. If you out there want to get involved in esports, feel free to go find it out in your local community, anything like that. Esports here at Western Michigan University as well. If you want to get involved, go check out our website. You can email Tavian to get some information, or you could possibly get involved in the club to be able to figure out how to be more involved.
You can stop by the arena on East Campus.
Yes. We host open plays on Friday nights from 7 to 11 p.m. So it's your best time to come on by and check out the arena. So thank you guys for listening this week. Go check out the games next week where your Broncos will be playing against Kent State University, which will be happening the day after this airs, sadly. So on Tuesday, they'll be playing Kent State. We'll hear a recap about that. And then they'll be playing Central Michigan University 2 weeks from now. Possibly on a Thursday, Central might be traveling to join us on campus. So we may have an in-person rivalry night. It could be pretty cool.
I'll get the popcorn.
I know. I'll be ready for you when you get there. Thank you guys for listening. You are listening on WIDR FM 89.1. See ya.
Bye-bye.